Let's start with Jimmie, a somewhat strange position for you this weekend, because in 4 of the 5 years you've won the championship, you've come into Homestead leading the points. Now, similar to 2010, you come in as the chaser. I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can you pull off another late race comeback?
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible. You look at our bad luck last weekend. You know, there's still a race here, and there's still hard tires on these race cars, and something can happen there. There's still a lot of very tough competition on the track. You know, then this just isn't any other race. This is the championship race, and there's a lot that comes with that. So I'm very optimistic. I think that we'll have a very fast race car, and we'll go out onto the racetrack and do all that we can each and every lap of every practice session, qualifying and race, and see how things play out. You know, I find another point of motivation and optimism. You know, we look at the IndyCar Championship and how it unfolded at Fontana. It seemed like it was a layup race, and you know, things can happen. This is racing, so I think either way we'll be in good shape. We'll have a fast race car and go out and race hard, and then if you know some luck comes our way, we'll hopefully be you know, ready to capitalize on that as well.
Well, Brad, I'm trying to stay neutral here. There's no doubt about that. But you know, I got a special affinity for that number 2 car. That's also been a very special car for me. And I think about Roger Penske a lot. Never winning a NASCAR Cup title. Becoming close many times, though. What would it mean for you to be the first guy to bring home that title for Penske and that entire group?
Well, thanks, Rusty. I think I got to push this button down since there's this big thing. How about that? Yeah, there we go. Well, you know, to win a championship for Roger would certainly be a huge accomplishment, considering everything he's been through in American motorsports and beyond. You know, you look at his legacy in the sport, and you can't help but feel that he's been a little bit slighted on the NASCAR side. So we'd like to get that job done. And I think we have the opportunity to do it. I think we have the team and car, and it's just a matter of putting all the pieces together. And so far, that's happened this year. There's no guarantee that will continue to happen, but you know, I think you look at trends and you try to label how things can happen, and there's a very strong possibility. So, you know, for us, it's about focusing on getting the job done and trying not to think about all those other things, whether it's, you know, what it means or what obstacles lie ahead. It's about, you know, just focusing on what we need to do. And, you know, the history books and the life lessons and so forth, those things will work their way out in the end if you just get the job done. And I think that's where our focus is.
All right, Brad, thanks a lot. To conduct the question and answer period, we're going to bring back up Kerry Thorpe.
Okay. For our final segment here today at the Championship Contenders press conference, got questions for Jimmie Johnson and Brad Keselowski. If you have one, raise your hand. We'll start right here with Jeff, and then we'll go to this young man over here to the left.
Jeff Gluck from SBNation.com. Jimmie, given the deficit, do you feel like you have to root for something bad to happen to Brad, or would you consider roughing him up in order to put him back somewhere back in the field?
Well, I think that you know, to think that a top 15 finish is a layup is tough. I mean, this garage area is tough. You know, the weight of this race, I don't care who you are, it'll show up at some point in time, and thoughts will run through your head. And you know, with all that being said, a 15th place finish isn't a layup for these guys. So, you know, I have a little bit of stock in that, and we'll see how they respond. I mean, their trends this year have been strong, but this is a different race. Then as far as the luck category, you know, we were unlucky, and anybody can. Anybody can be. So, you know, there's that element of, you know, that exists out there, and we'll just see where it all unfolds. But, you know, there's a line of racing hard, to answer your final part of your question, and we both have proven we're willing to race hard, and I certainly am willing to race hard down here. It's not my style to go drive through somebody and create the opportunity. That's not me. So I'm going to race as hard as I possibly can and see where things fall.
Gentleman to the left, Don Coble, and then Jenna. Go ahead.
John Roger, NASCAR Fridays. His question's for Brad. Brad, at the beginning of the season, you did something spectacular with social media. You had your phone in your car, and during the red flag at Daytona, you were able to tweet. It was on Twitter. It was going crazy. People were following you like crazy, and it was trending nationwide. It made a big impact on the sport. Coming into the last weekend, You got fined for having your phone in your car. So the question I have for you is, will you still bring it into your car for this race? Or what do you think that means for the future of being able to tweet or be a part of Twitter and the social media world during a red flag at the race?
Well, I think your first part was, would I put it in my car this weekend? Is that what your first question was? You got 2 questions. He earned 2 questions. I don't know. You haven't got 2 questions.
Just answer
So you got to pick one. Which one do you want?
The second one. What does it mean? What does it mean for the future of
What does it mean for the future? Okay, I'll answer that one. That's a good one. I think it means that you can still be involved in social media, but I think NASCAR's certainly said that they want to draw a line as to what you can do specifically in the car. And I think that's what it means for the future.
Let's go to Don Coble, Jenna Fryer, and George Diaz. Go ahead, Don. Right here. Sorry.
Don Coble with Morris News Service. Both of you know what the scenarios are. Will you have your teams let you know how you stand, or is that too much to think about during the race? Do you want to know where the other guy is, how many positions you got to get, or do you kind of wait till you get down to the last 50 laps to start thinking about stuff like that?
I mean, I don't really know how to answer. I mean, I guess you could look at it that way, but if you go out there and run well, at least from my position, that it all takes care of itself. So with maybe the exception of the last lap or two, I got a pretty good idea of where I'm at on the racetrack, or I should, and that stuff works its way out if we're in a good position.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, if we get to the end of the race and they're not having the day that that they would hope to have, that information could. It's really probably not going to change anything that I do. I mean, I still need every spot I can get on the track, but I'm sure information will come in, and even if it isn't specific, I will be able to tell by the tone in Chad's voice as to if we're in the good or the bad.
Let's go with Jenna, then we'll go George, and then we'll go to Mike Brunell.
Jennifer, AP. I'm going to ask 2, even though I'm not allowed, Brad. But I guess it's 1 for both of you. As the psych major, or the pretend psych major of the group, Jimmy, you I can't help but notice you brought up the IndyCar Championship and what happened there, and you said a top 15 finish is no layup. It seems you're kind of tweaking it a little bit, maybe intentional, maybe not. And we know from the past, I guess, 2 championships, you guys messed with Denny a little bit up there. Carl got a little rattled from Tony. Maybe you're doing it on purpose, maybe you're not. Is that the intent, to put the weight on Brad? And Brad, you seem to just be sitting there, square-jawed, looking straight ahead. Are you? Yeah, you can smile. I mean, are you too dumb to know any better, or
Wow.
I thought Jimmy was going to be tough. Dang.
And I mean
Jimmy,
that.
you got a lot of work to do to catch up with her.
No, and I mean that with all due respect,
I think you watch Talladega Nights too much.
Let's stay on topic here. Jimmy, go ahead.
Of course, I'm going to find points that give myself motivation and my team. And if there's anything I can do, and Brad, if you'd like me to call you later and remind you of any other examples, I certainly can, of guys that didn't pull off the season finale as they would hope. But one thing I've learned is that regardless of how experienced anyone is in this championship battle, at some point the magnitude of it hits you. And at some point, he may be very comfortable and calm now. It may not happen until he's in the car, but at some point, that magnitude hits. And I've lived through it 5 times. And, that's a turning moment. And we'll see how, he responds. It also carries over to guys changing tires. I mean, there's some point where every member on that race team goes, this is it. This is what I've worked so hard for. And I'll be glad to point out those moments as needed.
Brad, do you have any rebuttal there?
I think my question is, how dumb am I?
How are you, we saw Denny fall victim to it. Carl got a little rattled in this moment. What are you doing to not, and Roger has seen Will Power, fall victim to it, 4 times. So what are you doing to not, let this rattle you?
This as in the opportunity to win a championship? Well, I think that it's not something that you can really answer in a sense that's easy for this group to understand. And that's not. Sorry, maybe that was a jab back. I've been listening to too much Tony Stewart. But I think it comes from the people that you're surrounded by and how comfortable they are, and that comes into your own world. And I can tell you that the group that I have and that I'm surrounded by, whether it's in my personal life or professional life, they're not known for being very rattled in these opportunities and these positions. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that you can do is be surrounded by people that share that same passion that you have, but also put out a level of calmness that is somewhat addictive. And I feel like if you look at Paul, Paul's pretty stone-faced, and that's his style. He's not a real emotional guy, and certainly you cue off of that, just like Jimmy was saying he does with Chad. And there's other guys. You look at Roger. Roger's the same way. You're not going to see Roger showing a bunch of emotion, even if we do win it. He's going to be very stoic, as he always is, which is great. And my family life, personal life, was the same way. Whether it's my dad or mom, when they have their successes, they're certainly very passionate and happy for them, but they're also very very quiet and very capable of moving forward and looking forward to not get too caught up in the moment. So for me, I guess the best way to answer is I rely on the people I'm surrounded by.
Let's go George, Mike, and then Lee. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, Brad, George Diaz with the Orlando Sentinel. The points and, as Jimmy stated, 15th place finish is not a layup. How much is, when you start crunching numbers, if you will, approaching the race, I mean, how much of that do you do in terms of affecting your mindset, in terms of affecting your approach to the race? I assume it doesn't change, but I also think that it's human nature not to think about, hey, I've got a pretty good shot here.
Well, Mr. Diaz, I haven't crunched a lot of numbers, to be honest. Not those types. I can tell you what kind of fuel mileage we're going to get, but I got no idea about the trends and patterns of the average finish and so forth. But I know if we go out there and just do our jobs, everything will take care of itself. So to put your focus on those other things is just another distraction that doesn't serve the goal that we have. So I haven't done it.
Let's go to Mike, let's go to Lee, and then Nate. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike Brudenell from the Detroit Free Press. Brad, no pressure on you, mate, but you'd be the first Michigan-born driver if you win on Sunday to claim the Sprint Cup title. How does it make you feel? I mean, obviously pretty proud, I'd guess. Detroit needs a boost. The Tigers lost the World Series. How does it all play in?
Well, I mean, I'd be glad to help out. How about that? Obviously, I'm very proud of the roots that I have back in Michigan, and specifically in the Metro Detroit area, and have strong roots still to the area with my family living there and car owner who's based out of the Detroit area. So I think it would be a very powerful moment for sure, at least for me and hopefully for the area and community. So anything that we can do to serve that just plays into some of the heritage of our team. And makes us stronger.
Let's go Lee, Nate, and then Melinda.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. Brad, when you think back to Rochester Hills and that little white cinder block shop that your dad raced out of and your grandfather raced out of Michigan, when you think back to all of that and how far you've come, and it could have gone the other way. You could be where Brian is right now. What does that mean to you? What will that mean to the Keselowski family who's really scraped and, to get where you are today?
Well, it's hard to speak for everyone in my family, and I don't want to pretend to do that. But I also know that, I have somewhat of a read on them. And, it's kind of funny when you brought that up. My brother, I was thinking of the parallels between Jimmy and I and our brothers and where we're at in sports, and we both want to see them be successful. And obviously that hasn't worked out for them and as far as being a race car driver at this level. And both of us probably want to see that happen. But it's not easy, and it's a difficult balance. I know my brother's planning on coming down here for the weekend on Sunday, or I should say for the day on Sunday, and that's going to be great. I'm glad to have him here, or any family for that matter. And I think if the personal relationship that my brother and I have, you would understand why that's such an accomplishment for him to be here Sunday. So I think that probably speaks more volumes than anything else as to how my family is feeling those moments. My dad is the type of guy that would probably never tell you good job to your face. But if he spoke to you or did an interview with you, he would say, wow, man, you got to see what Brad's done. It's great, and I feel awesome about it. So I have to rely on those outside things, those nuances, so to speak. So it's good to see him as well at the racetrack this weekend, and my brother and my mom and so forth, sisters coming out. So that makes me feel like it really means a lot to them.
We got time for 3 more questions. We're going to go with Nate, Melinda, and end back in the corner with Bob.
Nate Ryan, USA Today. For Jimmy, you said that at some point the magnitude hits you for everybody, and it affects the contenders in some way. But a few weeks ago, Dale Earnhardt Jr. said about Brad Keselowski that he's so mentally tough he didn't think he was going to crack. So something you see from Brad that makes you think otherwise, and what happens in that moment when the magnitude does hit you? How do you respond to it? What makes that championship medal that you need to win a championship?
Well, me trying to explain what it's like and how I've handled it would probably be kind of stupid to me right now. So I'm going to not answer the second part of your question. The first part is, the magnitude sets in at some point. I mean, just answered a question about family, and I've been there, and I've been the guy leading the points, and people are so curious to know all these what ifs. What if it happens? And you're forced to answer questions that you're not used to answering, that you don't want to answer, and builds through the course of the week. So again, it hits everybody differently, and there's no guarantees how it'll hit them. But I know from my own experience that there have been those moments, and fortunately, I responded well to them. We'll see how the weekend goes.
We had the next question. We had 2 more. Melinda and then Bob.
Melinda Adams, ESPN. Brad, this question's for you. You've said all along you're going to come here, you're going to win it. You really only have to finish 15th. How do you change your mindset from being the go-all-out kind of driver you are to maybe kind of being conservative and playing it safe?
You don't. One of my favorite movies in the whole wide world is this documentary on Ayrton Senna. And there's this really powerful scene in that movie that sticks with me when I think about this weekend. I think about this scene in the movie where they talk about him at Monaco, which was his just phenomenal track that he was so strong at, and how he had this huge lead over his teammate at the time. Obviously had an identical car, which showcased what kind of talent Ayrton had. And they were coming down to the closing laps of the race, and they told him to slow down. You have a huge lead. Don't worry, just slow down. And he wrecked. And I think of that as I approach this weekend. I'm going to go out there and play my game, race my way. That's got us to this point. And if we do that, we'll be fine. And I think that's our approach.
Final question, Bob, and those that didn't get your questions in, remember they're available downstairs. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Dillner, Speed. Brad, Jimmy's played a little head games on you here, and you said you're relying on people and you're going to race your race this weekend. But what I want to know, this is a championship you're going after, the best of the best in racing. How does this weekend feel different, and if it doesn't, why?
Well, I've been going for the championship all my life, and specifically this particular one for the last 9 races. So Homestead pays the same amount of points that Chicago did, and the same amount of points that Martinsville did when Jimmy won. It's the same, and there's no reason to change that approach, and that's why I feel that way.